I was sitting on their sofa perfectly still when my mother screamed. It wasn't a small sound. It was a raw, guttural noise that made the neighbor's dog start barking. I watched her Karen clutching her phone like it had burned her. My father, Mark, came running in from the kitchen, his face a mask of annoyance. "What is it now?" he snapped. She just held out the phone, her hand shaking. I didn't move. I didn't say a word. I just sat there watching the chaos I had started, and I felt absolutely nothing. To understand why she screamed, we have to go back 10 years. When I turned 18, my parents, Karen and Mark, set up a joint savings account with me. It was funded with money my grandmother had left me. This, they announced, was my wedding fund. It was a little over $6,800, and it was supposed to sit there untouched until I got married. My mother, Karen, was the co-signer just in case of an emergency, she'd said. "I'm 28 now. I'm not married. I'm a graphic designer, and I'd mentally relabeled that account as my future house down payment fund. I rarely looked at it. It was just there. A safety net. That all changed on a Tuesday afternoon. I was in the middle of a design project when my phone buzzed. It was a text from my mom. "Hey, honey, had to use the joint account for an emergency supplier bill. The online store had a little hiccup. We'll pay you back at the end of the month. Love you." My stomach didn't just drop. It evaporated. A little hiccup. I knew her online boutique was failing. She'd been dropping hints for months about needing a small investment. I'd always pretended not to understand. I told myself not to panic. A supplier bill might be, $500? Maybe $1,000? It was still theft, but it felt manageable. My hands were shaking, but I opened my banking app. I navigated to the joint savings account. I stared at the balance. $15.22. I refreshed the screen. $15.22. I refreshed it again. Still $15.22. I clicked on the transaction history. It wasn't one bill. It was 3 separate withdrawals over the last 48 hours. Withdrawal $2,500, withdrawal $2,000, withdrawal $2,300, $6,800. Gone. All of it. She hadn't paid a bill. She had systematically emptied the entire account. The text message wasn't a confession. It was a flimsy excuse she'd sent after the money was already gone just to cover her tracks. I didn't feel shocked. Not really. What I felt was a cold, heavy certainty. The kind of feeling you get when you've been ignoring 100 tiny red flags and they all suddenly converge into one giant burning inferno. She stole from me. I called them. Both of them. Straight to voicemail. I sent a text. "I see the account is empty. We need to talk immediately." No reply. Of course not. The silence was the loudest confession. My hands were shaking, but not from sadness. It was pure, undiluted rage. The old me would have cried. The old me would have waited by the phone, sick with anxiety, hoping for an explanation, ready to accept any lie they offered. The old me died in the 10 seconds it took to refresh that banking app. I didn't call them again. I called Ryan. Ryan is my best friend from college, and he's also a lawyer who specializes in digital privacy and financial crimes. He picked up on the second ring. "Hey, Chloe, what's up?" My voice came out weirdly calm. "Hey, Ryan, I have a situation, and I need a lawyer, not a friend, for about 10 minutes. His tone switched instantly. "Okay, go." I laid it out. The wedding fund, the joint signature account, the $6,800, the text message from my mom after the account was already empty, the 3 separate withdrawals, the phone calls going straight to voicemail, There was a long silence on his end. I could just hear him breathing. Ryan. Yeah, I'm here, he said. His voice was hard. Okay. First, I'm so sorry, Chloe. This is monstrous. Is it illegal? I asked. She was a co-signer. Is there anything I can even do? Yes, it's illegal, he said, and the certainty in his voice was like grabbing a steel bar. The co-signer argument is what they'll hide behind. But the account was established under a false pretense, a wedding fund, and she drained it without your consent for a purpose you never agreed to. The text message proves she knew it was wrong. That's fraud. That's unauthorized use. We've got them. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. So what do I do? You don't do anything, he said. I do. I'm going to draft a formal demand letter right now. It will state the exact amount taken, the fraudulent nature of the withdrawals, and give them 48 hours to return every cent. If they don't, we file a civil suit. Send me their email addresses. I sent them. An hour later, he emailed me a copy of the letter he'd sent. It was brutal. It was beautiful. And that brings us back to the sofa. The scream. My father Mark looked at the phone, his face, usually so composed for his real estate clients, turned a blotchy red. He read the email from Ryan. Then he did something I will never forget. He laughed. It was a dry, sharp, dismissive little sound. A lawsuit, he scoffed, shaking his head. He looked at me not with guilt, but with utter contempt. A lawsuit, Chloe. For what? It's the wedding fund. You're not even engaged. It's family money. Family money, I repeated. The words felt like gravel in my mouth. My mother finally found her voice, but it wasn't an apology. It was a roar. How dare you? She shrieked, tears of rage, not remorse, streaming down her face. How dare you sick a lawyer on your own family? We're in a crisis. My business is dying, and you're worried about some money you weren't even using. She stood up, pointing a shaking finger at me. I fed you. I clothed you. We gave you everything, and this is how you repay us, by trying to humiliate us, by being this ungrateful, aggressive child. I just stared at her. I felt nothing. It was like watching a nature documentary. And as she kept screaming about how I was selfish, how I was making this a huge drama, how I was the one tearing the family apart, a little voice in my head clicked. It was Ryan's voice from our call earlier. Be ready for it, Chloe, he had warned me. They're going to use a tactic. It's a classic playbook for abusers. It's called DARVO. I watched my mother, who was now clutching her chest as if she were the one who had been attacked. DARVO. Deny. It's just family money, not theft. Attack. How dare you? You're ungrateful. Reverse, victim, and offender. You are humiliating us. You are the one causing this pain. She wasn't sorry she did it. She was just furious that I had called her out. She was the thief, but in her story, I was the villain. I felt this strange, cold calm settle over me. The magic trick was broken. I saw the strings. I wasn't their daughter anymore. I was just an audience member at a very predictable, very sad show. I waited for her to run out of breath. My father Mark just stood there, arms crossed, nodding along with her accusations. I stood up. I'm not going to argue with you. You better believe we're going to argue, my father yelled. No, I said, my voice flat. We're not. I'm not. I am done. I walked to the door. You'll regret this, Chloe, my mother screamed after me. You're tearing this family apart. I stopped at the door, but I didn't turn around. You're wrong, I said. You're confusing family with your personal bank account. My lawyer will be in touch. I walked out and didn't look back. The demand letter and the confrontation didn't make them pay. It just made them angry. 3 days later, Ryan filed the civil suit. A process server officially handed them the papers. That night, my phone rang. It was my father, Mark. I stared at his name, then let it go to voicemail. A minute later, the notification popped up. I opened it, my thumb hovering over the delete button, but I played it. His voice wasn't yelling. It was worse. It was calm, cold, and rehearsed, like he was closing a real estate deal. "Chloe," he said, "you've made a significant miscalculation. You think this little legal stunt is going to work. You're dragging the family name through the mud over a misunderstanding. I'm giving you one chance to call this off before you do something you will permanently regret. You won't win this. Think about your future." It wasn't a plea. It was a threat. A very clear, very articulate threat. I saved the audio file and emailed it straight to Ryan. But I had no idea how fast he would act. I'm a freelance graphic designer. I have 3 main clients, but one of them, a tech startup, pays about 60% of my bills. They're my anchor. 2 days after my father's voicemail, I got an email from my contact at the startup, Sarah. The subject line just said, "Urgent check-in." We got on a video call. She looked uncomfortable. "Hey, Chloe." She started, not using her usual cheerful tone. "Listen, something's come up. We received an anonymous email yesterday." My blood went cold. "An anonymous email? About what?" "About you," she said, looking down at her notes. "It said that you are in serious financial trouble and are currently being investigated for fraud. It said you're unreliable and that we should audit your invoices." I couldn't breathe. It was so specific, so vile. Sarah, that is. That is an absolute lie. "I know, Chloe. I know," she said, though she didn't look like she knew. "You've been amazing for us. But we're a startup. We're getting ready for our Series B funding. The partners are spooked. Even the word fraud connected to a contractor. They just can't risk the exposure." "So what are you saying?" I asked, my voice flat. "We have to. We have to pause our contract," she said, finally meeting my eyes. "Indefinitely, until this is cleared up. I'm so sorry, Chloe. My hands are tied." The call ended. I sat there staring at the black screen. 60% of my income gone, just like that. I didn't even have to wonder who did it. "You'll regret this. Think about your future." My father hadn't just threatened me. He had tried to detonate my entire life. He who was obsessed with his public image as a successful, respectable realtor had just anonymously accused his own daughter of fraud. This was never about the $6,800. This was about obedience. This was about control. This was about the fact that I had said no, and he was going to burn my entire world to the ground to punish me for it. I felt a new kind of rage. It wasn't hot, it was ice. I was in a full-blown panic. Losing that contract wasn't just a setback. It was a financial catastrophe. My father knew exactly what he was doing. He knew that was my main source of income. He wasn't just trying to win, he was trying to break me, to leave me so destitute I'd have no choice but to drop the lawsuit and come crawling back. I was pacing my apartment, my hands shaking so badly I couldn't even hold a coffee mug when someone knocked on my door. A hard, decisive knock. My first thought was that it was my father Mark here to reason with me in person. I looked through the peephole and my stomach twisted in a different way. It was my uncle, David, my mother's brother. We weren't close, but David was different. He was a contractor, a practical, no-nonsense man who had always treated me with a quiet, gruff kindness. He was the only person in that family who seemed to exist outside of my parents' gravitational pull of drama. I opened the door. He looked older than I remembered, his face etched with worry. "Hey, Uncle David." "Chloe," he nodded. He didn't waste time on pleasantries. "Your mother called me." "Oh, I bet she did," I said, my voice dripping with an exhaustion I didn't try to hide. "She told me a wild story," he said, studying my face. "Said you were trying to sue them. Said you were, I don't know, trying to extort them for money." I just stared at him. Then I laughed a short, bitter sound. "Extort them." "Right. Come in." He sat at my small kitchen table, and I laid it all out. The wedding fund, the $6,800, the text message, the 3 withdrawals, the lawsuit, and then the final piece. And as of an hour ago, I finished my voice cracking. Despite myself, I'm out of a job. Because my father Mark sent an anonymous email to my biggest client accusing me of fraud. I expected him to be shocked. I expected him to defend his sister, my mother. I expected him to tell me I must have misunderstood. He did none of those things. He just sighed a deep, heavy sound that seemed to come from his boots. He rubbed his eyes under his glasses. "I was afraid of this," he said quietly. "Afraid of what?" He looked at me, and his expression was full of a sadness I didn't understand. "This isn't the first time, Chloe. This is just the first time she's done it to you." I sat down. "What are you talking about?" "When your grandmother, my mother, passed away," he said, his voice low, "she left a little bit of money for both me and Karen. Not a lot, a few thousand apiece. Karen was having a hard time with her new online business, even back then. She asked to invest my portion. Said she'd pay me back double in 6 months. He let out a dry laugh. "That was 12 years ago, Chloe. I never saw a dime." He continued, "When I finally pushed her on it, I became the monster. I was the ungrateful brother. I was the one obsessed with money. I was tearing the family apart. Your father Mark even called me and told me I was stressing Karen out and needed to back off. It was a complete mind game." He leaned forward, his eyes locking on mine. "They rewrote history. They told the rest of the family I was greedy, and I let it go. It was easier than fighting them. And I've regretted it every single day since." Hearing him say it, it was like a key turning in a lock I didn't know was there. All the gaslighting, all the accusations of me being the crazy one, it was a script, a pre-written, well-rehearsed script they had used before. "They're not going to stop Chloe," David said, his voice firm. "Your father tried to ruin your job because he's terrified. They're backed into a corner and they're lashing out. But you cannot back down. If you drop this now, if you let them get away with this, they will own you for the rest of your life. They will never stop." He stood up and put his hand on my shoulder. "You're doing the right thing. Don't you dare let them break you." When he left, the ice in my veins had solidified into steel. My panic was gone. All that was left was a pure, cold resolve. They didn't just steal my money. They didn't just try to steal my career. They had been doing this for years. And I was going to be the one to finally, permanently end it. My father's sabotage and my uncle's confession changed the game, but I still wasn't prepared for what came next. A few days later, my mother Karen texted me from another new number. No yelling, no crying, no accusations. Just 4 words. "We need to talk, please." I stared at the message. I didn't want to go. I wanted to throw my phone against the wall. But Ryan, my lawyer, had a different idea. Go, he said. Meet her somewhere public. Your phone's voice recorder is on the entire time. Don't agree to anything. Just listen. People like this, when they're desperate, they can't stop talking. They just have to show you how much power they think they still have. So, I agreed. We met at a generic coffee shop halfway between our houses. I got there early and picked a table in the back corner, my phone already recording in my jacket pocket. She walked in, and she looked awful. She looked like she hadn't slept in a week. Her hair was a mess, and she was wearing old clothes. The image of the put-together demanding matriarch was gone. This was a woman who was cornered. She sat down, her hands trembling. She didn't order anything. She slid a check across the table. "It's all there," she whispered. $6,800. Just take it and call off the lawsuit. Please, Chloe. Your father, he's not handling this well. You're ruining him. I didn't touch the check. I just looked at her. Not, I'm sorry. Not, we did a terrible thing, but you're ruining him. It's too late for that, Mom, I said, my voice as cold as my insides. You didn't just handle this badly. You stole from me. And then Dad tried to destroy my career. He called my biggest client and accused me of fraud. I lost the contract, so no, this check doesn't fix it. Her face went pale. She hadn't expected me to know. She thought my father's little sabotage trick had worked, that I'd be desperate and broke and would take the money. When she saw I wasn't broken, her entire demeanor changed. The desperation vanished, replaced by a familiar reptilian spite. I see, she said, her voice dropping. So, you want to play dirty. You want to really ruin us. I just want what you took, I said. Fine, she snapped, her eyes narrowing. She reached into her bag and pulled out a manila folder. She threw it on the table. You think your lawsuit is so strong. What about these? I looked down. It was a stack of papers, printed screenshots of my emails, my private emails, emails I had sent to friends complaining about my parents' behavior for years, old drafts, notes I had written to myself, and then at the very bottom, my blood turned to ice. It was a printed copy of an email I had sent to Ryan, my lawyer, just last week, outlining our entire legal strategy. I couldn't feel my hands. Where? I whispered, where did you get these? She smiled, a thin, triumphant, ugly little smile. Your father is very good with computers, Chloe. You really should be more careful with your passwords. You used our home desktop that one Christmas, remember? We just saved your login. I stared at her. She wasn't just a thief. She wasn't just a liar. She was a spy. They had been reading my private thoughts, my private conversations, my legally privileged communications for months, maybe years. They hadn't just stolen my money. They had stolen my entire private life. This wasn't a family dispute. This was a violation. I carefully picked up the stack of papers, all of them. Thank you, I said, my voice barely a whisper. My mother's smile faltered. What? Thank you for this, I said, standing up, my voice suddenly clear and loud. You've just given me everything I need. I walked out of the coffee shop, her shouting, Chloe, get back here behind me. I got in my car, locked the doors, and my hands started shaking so violently I couldn't put the key in the ignition. I didn't cry. I was too far beyond tears. I took a picture of every single page with my phone and emailed the file to Ryan. Less than a minute later, my phone rang. It was Ryan. His voice wasn't calm anymore. He was furious. "Chloe, are you safe? Are you away from them?" "Yes, I'm in my car." "Good," he said, and I could hear him typing furiously. "Listen to me. This is no longer a civil suit about $6,000. This is a federal crime. Multiple federal crimes." "What do you mean?" "I mean," he said, his voice sharp, "they didn't just access your email. They accessed my email. They intercepted attorney-client privileged communication. That is wire fraud. That is illegal surveillance. They just handed us a nuclear bomb, Chloe. They're done. They are done." He was right. The next morning, Ryan filed an emergency motion with the court attaching the new evidence of cybercrime and attorney-client privilege violation. He also forwarded the file to the State Bar Association and the District Attorney's Office. It didn't even take 2 hours. At 11:05 a.m., Ryan got a call. It wasn't from my parents. It was from their lawyer. And he wasn't threatening. He wasn't arrogant. Ryan said he sounded like he was about to be sick. The lawyer's first words were, "What does she want? Please, just tell us what she wants to make this go away." They were terrified. My father, the man obsessed with his reputation, had just been caught committing a federal crime. His respectable realtor image was about to be vaporized. Ryan called me. "They're offering everything," he said. "They're on their knees." "I want it all," I said, the ice still in my veins. "I want the $6,800, and I want $3,000 in damages for the contract I lost. And I want them to pay every single cent of your legal fees. And I want a permanent, legally binding no contact order. I never want to hear from them again. Ever." Ryan relayed the terms. Their lawyer agreed to everything on the spot. No negotiation, no argument, just a frantic, "Yes, okay, yes." 2 days later, the money hit my account. $9,800 plus all of Ryan's fees paid in full. I signed the settlement agreement. I signed the no contact order. It was over. I had won. 9 months passed. 9 months of absolute, deafening, beautiful silence. The no contact order was a wall of steel. No calls, no text from burner numbers, no anonymous emails, no surprise visits, nothing. It was over. I moved to a new city 3 states away. I found a new, better-paying design contract. I opened new bank accounts at a completely different bank. I changed every password I'd ever had. I scrubbed my digital life clean. For the first few weeks, I kept bracing for impact. I'd flinch every time my phone buzzed, expecting another attack. But the attack never came. The silence held. And slowly, for the first time in my 28 years, my shoulders started to come down from around my ears. I started sleeping through the night. I found myself sitting on my new balcony, drinking coffee, and realizing I hadn't thought about them for an entire day. The peace was real. And then, one Saturday, my Uncle David called. My heart didn't pound. I wasn't scared. I was just curious. He had respected the boundary, never calling to plead their case. This had to be something different. "Hey, Uncle David, everything okay?" He sighed. I heard him sit down. "Hey, Chloe, Well, I'm not calling to ask you to break the agreement. I'm calling as your uncle, to let you know." "Let me know what?" "It's your mom," he said. "She's sick, really sick. Something with her liver. It's not good, kid. The treatments are expensive. Your dad's, Mark's. He's struggling. He's trying to sell the house. I listened. I waited for the feeling, the guilt, the pang of regret, the old familiar urge to run in and fix it, to be the good daughter, to trade my own well-being for a pat on the head. Nothing came. There was just a quiet, sad stillness. "What are they expecting?" I asked, my voice soft. David was quiet for a moment. "They're hoping," he said, and I could hear the exhaustion in his voice. "They're just hoping that you'll help, that this will be the thing that brings you back." And there it was. The final desperate play. I remembered what Ryan had told me months ago, right after the settlement. "It's always about control, Chloe," he'd said. "When the guilt trips didn't work, they used threats. When the threats blew up in their face, they used blackmail. Now they've got nothing left. The only card left in the deck is pity." He was right. This wasn't a request. It was just another tactic. "I'm sorry she's sick, Uncle David," I said, "and I meant it. I truly am. But I can't. I can't help." He didn't argue. He didn't push. He just let out another long, slow breath. "Yeah," he said. "I figured as much. I had to tell you. You take care of yourself, kid." "You too, Uncle David." I hung up the phone. I didn't cry. I didn't feel angry. I felt free. People ask me if I ever missed them, and the answer is no. I finally realized the truth. I don't miss them. I miss the idea of them. I spent my entire life grieving the loss of parents I never actually had. I was mourning the imagined parents, the mother who would one day wake up and be proud of me, the father who would one day protect me instead of seeing me as a threat, the family that would one day love me for who I was, not for what I could do for them. Those people never existed. And the moment I stopped waiting for them to appear, the moment I finally let that hope die, I was free. I held a quiet little funeral for that hope. I buried it, and I walked away. My old life was a house fire. I was constantly trying to put out, but I finally realized I wasn't the firefighter. I was just the fuel. The only way to survive was to leave. So I did. They took $6,800 from me, but I took back my entire future.